afternoon, everybody. My name is Dennis Ojo, class of 2012 scholar from Los Angeles. Really pleasure for me to be here and to share a little bit about my writing journey. To start off, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. So in my day job, I am a civil rights attorney for the state of California. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, as I mentioned. I'm a child of Nigerian immigrants, and I love playing music, playing guitar here at the LA recognition dinner. You may have recognized me holding the show on guitar. But I also am a self-published author. And so I'm a self-published author of a short story about Frederick Douglass, creative fiction type of what-if story, and also a more personal story about my mom's immigrant journey from Nigeria to Los Angeles. And both books had very different sort of creative genesis, and it's a real pleasure for me to be able to kind of share with you about the process that I had for writing these books while I was, in college, in law school, studying for the bar exam, still finding time to write. If you have an idea for a book, but you're not sure, how am I going to actually get the time to write, I have a little bit of advice of a method that I'll share that hopefully can help you get your idea into a finished product. And so first, I'm going to talk about my short story that I wrote called Frederick Douglass and the John Brown Scouts that I self-published. It started off as a final project in a English literature class that I took in senior year, and it was inspired by this quote that I learned about in that class. And so Frederick Douglass, the great abolitionist, had written to President Abraham Lincoln that every slave who escapes from rebel slaves is a loss to the rebellion and a gain to the loyal cause. I need not stop here to argue. The proposition is self-evident. The Negro is the stomach of the rebellion. And so what Frederick Douglass was in conversation with Abraham Lincoln about was the fact that towards the end of the Civil War in 1864, it wasn't clear who was going to win. And Abraham Lincoln was deeply fearful that if he lost the 1864 election, his opponent was going to end the war, and pretty much it was going to be a guaranteed victory for the South, and slavery would have been in place. And so Frederick Douglass was in conversation with Abraham Lincoln about creating like a secret task force that was going to make the Emancipation Proclamation a reality by essentially sending in secret troops behind enemy lines and emancipating those who were enslaved and making the Emancipation Proclamation a reality. It was issued in 1863, and for several years, people who had been quote unquote freed didn't know anything about it. And this was planned to make that a reality. But as fate had it, it wasn't really necessary to happen. The North ended up winning the Civil War, and this plan never went into place. But this short story imagines what would have happened if that were the case. And from the documents that were available, we know that Frederick Douglass would have been the general who would have been responsible for this sort of secret task force. And so I wrote this short story from a class, and I kind of developed it during the summer after I graduated from college. And that is me on one Halloween for writing the book. And so this is so for this book, it was something that I started in class and I had developed over time afterwards. And it just goes to show that you can start with something that you already have, like written in class. Maybe you have a diary entry or something that you feel like would be a really good idea to develop more. That is one way for you to get your work out there, and self-publishing is an option. I'm a testament to that. My second work is my most recent one, and this is a very personal one about my mom's immigrant journey from Nigeria. And so, the genesis of this really comes down to all of these kind of quotes, these parables that she always speaks in. One of them, this is a very good example. The water you will drink will never flow past you. Or in accent, the water you will drink will never flow past you. And so, growing up, I was like, Mom, what does that even mean? Like there's just all these kinds of quotes. I'm sure you might, have a similar experience where there's these things, these ancestral as I like different kind of AI, ancestral intelligence. It never made sense. But over time, I just said, I want to start writing these kinds of quotes down, and eventually it developed into this book. This is a book that's inspired by her journey. It's not like a biographical book, but what it was is 20 different chapters where one of these quotes makes a feature in each chapter, and it kind of tells her life story growing up in Nigeria, the kinds of things she struggled with. My mom is a very headstrong woman who did not accept traditional gender roles that were set in place for Nigerian girls and women during her time. And so she always knew that she wanted to get an education, that she wanted to to go overseas to make a better life for herself. And she always had this idea of an American dream. And so, in talking to her about her journey, I learned that, she had an American dream, and, that dream, when it became a reality, was actually, it was a blessing, but also there were some things about coming to America that were things that we didn't exactly, weren't contemplated in that dream. For the first time experiencing a type of racism in America that, growing up in a village in Nigeria, everybody looked like her. So this book kind of tackles some of those kinds of things, that immigrant experience, or just kind of, she used to talk about thinking that, coming to America, everybody's rich, or like the streets are paved with gold. Those are the kinds of ideas that, when she had her reality coming to America, she was able to, kind of see that, okay, there is, my American dream isn't necessarily what I was told when I was growing up in the village she came from. But yes, these are pictures of, this is a launch that we did at Harvard. It felt really great because, to be able to have invited my mom as one of the people who could, be one of those guest speakers at a place like Harvard, it was like, for me, an incredible honor, and it's her holding this book with some of my relatives. It was a real honor, this personal project. And so the last thing I want to talk to you all about is just sort of the method that I feel worked for me to write these two pieces of work while still maintaining a full-time job as an attorney. And I call it the dentist 20-minute method. I haven't trademarked it yet. And it's very simple. It's really a matter of choosing a time during the day in which you feel your brain is the most alert, you're most active, and you can dedicate 20 minutes of focused time to a creative project. Now this can be applied to writing, it can apply to any kind of art. I applied this to me trying to better my skills as a guitar player. And just 20 minutes of focused writing is all that it takes. And what helps me is not having the goal of, I need to write the most beautiful thing in that 20 minutes. I need to have something that's ready to share. What's more important is that I just had 20 minutes of focused time. And oftentimes that means putting my phone away and just like having the time that I need to work on what I need to do. And that's it. I don't have to try to do it all in one day. And sometimes I may have not gotten anything written that day, or sometimes I may get more written than I possibly could have imagined. But with just that consistency, that diligence, just a little bit every day was what allowed me to be able to pursue my creative goals outside of my day job, which I do enjoy, but these are the things that are really, really fulfilling. And I know that with that kind of consistency, you too can have a finished product in your hands, just like this. And so I thank you all so much for listening. If you want to get a copy of my book, everybody who gets one from this link can get a personally signed message from myself.